Hi everyone, I'm Stan Mallow. Welcome to Paranormal Yakker. My guest in today's show is Yvonne Smith, a certified hypnotherapist who has dedicated decades to researching alien abductions and has, because of her many accomplishments, become a major voice in the world of UFOs. On a past show, I interviewed Yvonne about her book, Chosen Recollections of UFO Abductions through Hypnotherapy. And now I'll be talking with her about another great book she authored, Coronado, The President, the Secret Service, and Alien Abductions. Yvonne Smith, welcome to Paranormal Yakker.
Thank you for having me back on your show. I appreciate it.
Before your book came out, when one mentioned San Diego's legendary Hotel Del Coronado, what would come to mind for most people are the Hollywood stars who stayed there, movies filmed there, such as the classic Billy Wilder comedy, Some Like It Hot. That's Marilyn Monroe, Tony Curtis, and Jack Lemmon. For sure, the hotel's magnificent chandeliers, which were designed by L. Frank Baum, author of The Wizard of Oz. But now, thanks to you, Yvonne, we have to add UFOs and alien abductions. To cut to the chase, the incredible journey you chronicle in your book began at a UFO conference you hosted at the hotel. When, Yvonne, did that conference take place, and who were some of the key participants at it?
That was March 26th and 27th of 1994. And at the time, I was traveling along with my colleagues, Dr. John Mack, Dr. David Jacobs, and Bud Hopkins. The Triad conferences were funded by Robert Bigelow back at that time. The one that they were going to hold on Coronado Island, the organizers asked me to MC the conference because it was in my backyard. I live in Southern California. I could drive down there, and I was very happy to do it. It was going to be a great weekend. I had about a dozen of my support group members. They all caravanned that Friday to Coronado because they were excited about seeing the speakers and meeting other experiencers that often come to these conferences. And at the time we had really the hard hitters, the premier crop circle researcher. We had, the government side of the UFO phenomenon. I believe we also had Bud Hopkins was there speaking about, of course, all of his cases on abduction. And we may have had about 6 speakers altogether. But what was very strange about that weekend, which, none of us really realized when we got there, that there were many black SUVs, like government type vehicles, all around the island, parked around the hotel. There were the SUVs, regular cars, police cars. But I didn't pay too much attention to it because, I was so busy. I drove up with 2 of my Ciro members, and I was going to be doing a regression that night. So I had to get ready for that, in my hotel room. But it wasn't until the next day when another Ciro member, Melinda Leslie, who's one of the people who was abducted that weekend, and she has a chapter in the book. She looked around, and where she parked, she could see all of these black SUVs, and she thought, "Oh my God!" And then of course you could see the Secret Service. They had the implants in their ear for their microphones and sunglasses, and they're all in suits and very obvious. And she thought, "Oh my God, they're here for us. They're going to round us up, the abductees, and take us away." And then we found out at the hotel that then President Bill Clinton was going to be on the island. He was going to be doing a speech and be there. He was staying with his friend at that time. He was with Lawrence, which he had appointed the ambassador to Switzerland. He wasn't staying at the Del Coronado. He was staying with his Lawrence Lawrence, his very good friends. And I have pictures of that house in the book as well. What was very strange, and we didn't know till afterwards, is that usually, of course, Secret Service, they will go and they will inspect where the president's going to be maybe a couple of weeks ahead of time. They knew that our conference was going to be going on at the same time. Why didn't they move us? I had no idea. It wasn't until a lawyer friend of mine said, that's very strange that they allowed you to have your conference there at the same time that the president was going to be there. Because I remember something on the news about Obama at the time when he was president. He was going to go to Hawaii where he vacations and stay at this hotel. They asked this wedding party to move to a different hotel. But yet here we were, a UFO conference, and so we were there, and everybody was arriving, many on Fridays and others on Saturday, and the conference started early Saturday mornings. I was busy trying to keep all the speakers on time and the schedule. One at a time, my serial members were coming up to me throughout the conference saying, oh my gosh, I don't feel well. I have a headache. I don't know if I'm going to be able to attend the conference. If some people aren't too familiar with the abduction experience, when people have an encounter the night before, many times they wake up the day after feeling as if they had flu-like symptoms. They just don't feel well. Their body aches, sometimes coming up with a very strange mark on their bodies that they didn't have the night before. And this is what happened with two of my serial members, where they woke up. One, she came away with an implant on her left shin, and the other one, he had blood on his pillow. After the conference, went back home, and he was a nurse, so he was in the medical field. In his left ear, he had blood, and he wanted to go see an ENT there where he worked at the hospital. And it was this indication inside his ear canal, there was a hole. And the doctors told him, you've got to stop poking things in your ear because you have a hole there. And, of course, Mike's going, I didn't poke anything in my ear. So he has that report, which I put in the book. And then Alice, who had the implant in her shin, Dr. Roger Lear, back when he was still with us, he had his colleague do the surgery. And I have all the details about when the implant was removed, and it was analyzed. Those were the two that came away with blood on the pillow, with something. It was a scoop mark on Alice's shin, and she didn't realize there was something underneath, right underneath that scoop mark. But things didn't occur. Many times others started realizing maybe something happened because they were having these half memories, some strange dreams. And so they started coming to me, and I began putting everything together. Because during the conference, it just didn't occur to me, because I had such a busy job. I don't know if you've ever been an MC anywhere or at a conference. You have to be on your toes. You have to keep everybody on time. It wasn't until weeks after, and even when I was in the midst of writing the book, I drove up north a couple times to do regressions because there were so many people involved. I had to complete the regressions, and regressions are, they take time, and some of them are, they're very tedious. A lot of the details that come through. So it took a while. And so that's why this happened in 1994, and the book was published in 2013 because there was so much work that went into it. And now, I mean, I'm hoping, because it's such a good case with all these witnesses who did see each other on the craft. It came out in their regressions that they saw each other on the craft, and the craft was very, very large. So these beings who decided to do this, they knew, they were aware that we were having a conference, and so they prepared. They knew they were going to be abducting several people, and who knows, there may have been others on the island that just may not remember, or they haven't put two and two together. Sometimes this doesn't occur to somebody till maybe 20, 30, 40 years later. And I'm hoping now with this case, mass abduction case, that it will be made into a feature film. I'm hoping it will be.
It has all the parts that would make a great one. So I'm on your side with that. I would love to see it. It's really fascinating. All these cliffhangers, who, what, when, why. I mean, it's intriguing there. I think everything happened while Secret Service were there. That's amazing.
Yeah, I remember. I have a memory. I had my big badge on, Yvonne Smith, MC, and it was the, Triad conference. And I remember walking in that beautiful lobby. If anybody's ever been to the Del Coronado, it's just beautiful. I saw two of them coming towards me, and they look all alike because they're wearing these suits. I mean, they look very nice. They had their pieces in and sunglasses, and I knew, well, they knew we were there, and here I am with this big badge, and so we were all there together that weekend. They were, of course, all around Lawrence's house because that's where Clinton was going to be staying. And but it was, very strange because here, Coronado Island, they train the Navy SEALs. It's a military town, and yet these beings were able to come down and abduct all these people right under the nose of the military, the Secret Service. So they have capabilities that we still don't understand, but they were able to do this with all of that security around.
Amazing. From what you observed and conversations you've had with others who were at the hotel and witnessed the bizarre happenings taking place, is there a consensus as to if President Clinton made contact with any alien beings? If the answer is yes, what led you and the other people you spoke with to arrive at that conclusion?
It's, yeah, that's something that I don't think we'll ever really know. We haven't known at this time. No information has come to me. Who knows? Maybe, down the line on his deathbed, like so many people have made deathbed confessions. The Roswell case with all the military, they couldn't talk at that time. Of course, if some information does come forward, I will put it out there, so that, as part of this case, because it would be very fascinating. Abductions happen to anybody and everybody. They do not discriminate. Famous, not famous, rich, poor. It's a cross section of any community. So I would not doubt that he may have had an experience, as well as some of his Secret Service. I feel that no one's immune, and what better person to try to communicate with is, the president, and he's probably just as surprised as everyone else. He probably has had partial memories and maybe vivid dreams, that this is how the subconscious brings up these partial memories, and very vivid dreams or flashbacks. The case was very, very complicated. I did have one other gentleman who was abducted with everybody in my group. He roomed with another serial member, and they were both taken into the same room. Steve, who saw Gary. Gary was very agitated, very angry. He was trying to break away. And that's how his personality was. He thought it was like no one's going to control him, and he was a big guy. He looked like he was a Marine. Steve described all the beings around Gary, around the table. So the next morning, they were going to get ready, go to breakfast, and go to the conference. And Gary went into the bathroom, and all of a sudden, Steve hears him go, "Oh no." And what he found on the top of his penis was a triangular shape, layers of skin removed. Now, now, he's not the only one. I've had 3 men altogether in my caseload that have had triangles on their penis. I mean, what? There is no man that I know of that would do that to themselves to claim that they're an abductee. I mean, how do you don't do that to yourself. Of course, we didn't get a picture of it, but Gary tried. He told me he tried to take a picture by himself, but it was very difficult because I always caution everybody, if you have overnight marks or scars, just try to get pictures of them, and when you know they weren't there the night before, because many times these marks will go away within 24 hours, and you always want documentation. So that was another very, strange bit that happening of that case, that he was very agitated. Steve described how he was very agitated, and he felt very bad for him because he couldn't help him. And here he comes up the next day with that mark on his body. Yeah, it was just, you'd have to read the book to, because, within a half hour, an hour, it's hard to explain all the details that came up in individual sessions. And whenever I have a multiple witness case and they describe seeing each other, and then many of them will recognize each other here on Earth. They'll just, sometimes they'll look at each other and go, have we met? Have I seen you somewhere? It is, it's a very, very unbelievable, phenomenon how that happens. And then later they realize some of them met on the craft when they were young children. There's so much to this abduction experience, but I feel that the Coronado case, and I thank you for bringing me on to talk about this case, because I haven't spoken about it for a while. I just did a lecture a couple weeks ago. They wanted me to talk about Coronado, and then you asked me to come on, and I thought, okay, it's time for Coronado to come back. Let's revive the case, because it is very important for people to understand that this happens to multiple people at the same time. And that's not, there are other cases that I know are out there that probably have not been, actually researched completely. Maybe the sessions haven't been able to be done, because when you have multiple witnesses, it just takes so much time to get through all the work and to corroborate each other's stories.
Have you, Yvonne, done any follow-up of the abductees you interviewed for your book to find out if they continue to have contact with alien beings since you last spoke with them? How have their encounters changed their lives? And do they now view the encounters differently than when it initially happened?
Oh, I've had contact with several of the members who were abducted in Coronado, and yes, they've all had further contact. When this starts, and it usually starts in early childhood, and however the beings choose someone or their family, it is a lifelong experience. It's not just 1 or 2 times. And that's why I want people to understand that don't be surprised when this happens again and again. And don't be surprised that this happens to family members as well, because I call it a family affair. It's intergenerational. So, yes, they've all had ongoing experiences. And it does change their life, because they all tell me you can't look at life the same before you were aware of having these experiences. You've touched something that most people aren't conscious of, at least not right now. We don't hear about it on the news. It should be on the news. All the sightings should be reported on the news nightly, because there are many sightings that don't go unreported. You can't help but be different. I mean, when I started this, I've been doing this for 33 years. It has totally changed my life. I feel that I am very fortunate to know that there's much more to life than what we think and what we see every day. People that have come to me, the experiencers, the abductees, have touched my life. It just, they're wonderful people from all walks of life. I'm getting more and more people now wanting to find out. I think many people are now are being awakened to the fact that this may have happened to them, and they want to know. The last couple of years, experiencers have been telling me, I feel like something is going to happen soon. Things are accelerating or ratcheting up. I, in my book, shows it in the second half of the book. I coined the term the urgency, because I had heard for several years about experiencers telling me, I feel I'm supposed to do something. I don't know what it is. I feel I'm not happy with the career I have anymore. I feel like I'm supposed to do something else. I mean, people that still don't know each other. It just the other day, just a couple of days ago, I had a new client tell me that. And then the last couple of years, it's something's accelerating. And I feel that something has been brewing beneath the surface for a while. And I think we're going to start hearing about this more. We need to all stay tuned.
You, Yvonne, founded CERO, Close Encounters Resource Organization, and the abductee support group. In what ways does the organization help the abductees cope with what they experienced? And if an abductee out of my audience wants to learn about the organization and join it, what should they do?
Just go onto my website. We talk about CERO. It's not open to the public. So you have to go on my website, hypnotherapist, YvonneSmith.com. You can email me from there. I have questionnaires you could fill out. And the reason I founded the group 32 years ago is because people were leaving my office and not being able to talk to anybody. And this was 32 years ago. We didn't have the internet back then the way we do now. We didn't have Facebook. The way people could communicate mainly was by telephone calls. Email was just starting to come in. We never dreamed that we'd be doing this now, Zoom and email, and they were all calling me. And I thought, oh my God, there needs to be some kind of a group or a meeting where like-minded people can come together. So I started out with about 6 people in my living room. And now we have, we meet in 2 locations in Southern California where I'm located. But during COVID, I started hosting the Zoom CERO meeting. So I have CERO members and clients from all over the world and all over the United States, which helps people that do not have anyone near them where they could go and talk to somebody. I've kept up, the Zoom meetings and the in-person meetings, and it's helped a great deal, because just like any support group, when you're not alone, you're not the only person that's going through this, it really does help, and it helps with the healing. And that's what's kept me going. When I've seen the positive, I've seen the healings. I will continue doing this until I can no longer do this.
Should viewers of Paranormal Yakker want to buy Coronado, the President, the Secret Service, and Alien Abductions, how, Yvonne, can they do that?
Oh, you can get it on Amazon. You can get it on Kindle. You can get the hard copy, and I hope everybody reads it, because I think it's a very important case.
Yvonne Smith, I thank you for being my guest on Paranormal Yakker. It's been a wonderful experience yakking with you, and I look forward to watching the movie that's based on your book.
Yes, yes. Please put the positive out there to the universe that it's going to be made into a feature film. And I'll be back on your show when it is made into a feature film.
Great speaking with you.
Thank you so much. You have a blessed day.
YouTube. Hi everyone, this is Stan Mallon of Paranormal Yakker. I hope you enjoyed the interview you just watched. So that you don't miss any upcoming shows, be sure to subscribe to my free YouTube channel. To do that, just press the subscribe button on your screen.